Let's cross to Fred Pleitgen. He is in Damascus this evening. Fred, the situation for those internally displaced in Syria is just tragic. What are they being exposed to at this time?
Hi, Atika. Well, there's basically three main differences between the people who are internally displaced, especially the children who are internally displaced, as opposed to those who have become refugees. First of all, there's much more of them. There's about 2 million people who have fled this country. There's about 6 million who are internally displaced, and many of them are children. We saw that today when we visited one makeshift camp for displaced people. The other thing is that many of these people are still in harm's way. They roam the country, but it's very difficult for them to actually get away from the fighting. And the third main difference is that it's much harder for aid to actually reach these places. There's a lot of places here in this country that are either under siege by the military or under siege by rebels where aid convoys simply can't go through. We were able today to get to a makeshift camp for displaced people where people are living under absolutely appalling conditions. Let's have a look. As fighting rages across Syria, those displaced by the conflict are not only worried about violence, they're worried about the cold in this makeshift camp in southern Damascus, and they're especially concerned about the health of their children. Naima Ali al-Sheikh is from a neighborhood that was under rebel control until recently and is now destroyed. We had to run away from our home, she says, because there was no food and no milk for my child, and there were so many armed people. Naima has 4 children. Her entire family stays in this tent, sleeping on top of each other to stay warm. Naima says the children are often sad and talk about the home they lost. I miss our house, the 8-year-old daughter says. We could not bring our things with us. I miss school. I was supposed to be in 1st grade. They are far from the only people displaced by battle. While the UN says that more than 2 million people have fled Syria, a much greater number, more than 6 million, have become internally displaced, many of them children. Aid groups tried to give them shelter and some educational and emotional support after the trauma they've endured.
International aid groups like UNHCR, UNICEF, and also the Syrian Arab Red Crescent and the Red Cross are really doing a lot here in Syria trying to help people. But there are still many camps for internally displaced like this one. It's just a couple of tents, and the people here really have to rely on themselves and the little help they get from private donors.
The children here rely on food donated by a local businessman. He tells me his aid is not enough. At the moment, I'm alone, he says, but I do hope that more people will pitch in and all of them will give something as well. Some of the children have been living in these tents for more than 2 years. Many have only tattered clothes and shoes to wear and haven't attended school since losing their homes. For most of them, there is no end in sight as Syria's civil war drags on and the cold winter draws near. And I can tell you, Atika, it's really been the past couple of days that the temperatures here have dropped immensely, so it's getting more and more difficult for these displaced people by the day. And I was able to tour that area a little bit today, and there are some places there that were in rebel hands, but have since been gone back to the government where the fighting has actually ended, but the people still can't go back to their homes because in many cases, those homes have been absolutely flattened, Atika.